Now we're moving on to one of my favorite topics. And why is this? Well, it's because this is what protects us as consumers. This is the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, also known as the FDCPA. What a name. What an acronym. Here we go. We're diving through. This is going to be what will protect us as individuals as we go through the bankruptcy process, the collection process, kind of all of these protections involved with creditors. Now, this is a federal law under the United States. It aims to protect consumers from abusive and deceptive debt collection practices. The law was enacted in 1977, and it's been amended several times, and given a little background to the history there. Now, this is going to set rules for third-party debt collectors, such as collection agencies, and defines their rights and responsibilities when attempting to collect debts. It applies to personal, family, and household debts, including credit card debt, medical bills, and car loans. So let's just give an example. Let's say you owe a hospital $1,000 for an operation, and you don't pay that money. Well, then the hospital can go to, let's say the hospitals, many organizations, they're not the best at collecting money from people. What do? Everyone specializes these days. Hospitals specialize in care, treatment, surgery, all that good stuff. So what they do is they go to a debt collection agency and they say, we will give you 20% of the money if you do successfully collect this money from the debtor. So if that debt collection agency goes and actually gets the $1,000 from you because they're good at that, they know what to do, they know how to call, how to persuade you to give that debt up, then they'll get to collect 20% of it. And the hospital wins because they get some of their money back. That third party wins because you gave them the money and they get their 20%. And then you as the consumer, hopefully it was $1,000 well earned. Hopefully you got your service that you needed. That's how this all works. Those are the parties we're talking about here. Let's dive in even further. All right, what are some of the benefits here? And then we'll actually talk about the real specific attributes of this, but just overall benefits, protection from harassment. Well, this prohibits debt collectors, and again, whether this is someone who works for the hospital or a third-party collector, this doesn't have to be a hospital. I'm just using that example. Something, we all need healthcare out there, so we'll probably all have healthcare debts at some point in our lives. From abusive, harassing, or threatening language when communicating with debtors. This includes calling repeatedly, using profanity, or making false or misleading statements. The right to dispute debt. The law gives consumers the right to dispute a debt and request validation of the debt. The debt collector must provide proof of the debt, including the original creditor and the amount owed. They can't just come up to you and say, you owe us money. It's called, you got the mafia coming in and wanting protection money. So this is protections. You have to provide legal proof that you are doing this for a real debt. Limits on contact. Well, this law also limits the times of day when debt collectors can contact debtors. They cannot call at inconvenient times, such as early in the morning or late at night. They also must respect the debtor's request to stop contacting them. So if anyone is calling you, this might be helpful for your own life. If someone's calling you and saying you owe us money, say, stop calling me. Well, you might say isn't that kind of not fair? Because what if you legitimately owe them money? Well, at that point, that's when they would go through the process of collections and possible bankruptcy, depending on the amount. Obviously, there's a lot of different routes to take, small claims court, all that good stuff. Protections for third parties. This law also prohibits debt collectors from discussing the debt with third parties, such as family members or employers, except to locate the debtor. So the only thing they can do is say, we are looking to contact someone. They probably can't even go into more detail than that. I myself, I've got a few anecdotes from life, from other people who have kind of mentioned that there have been third parties, government agencies, debt collection agencies coming to them asking about other people. Obviously, I'm not going to go into those stories, but it does happen in real life. And if you are listed as someone's point of contact somewhere else, then these agencies could come to you and ask where that person is. All right, what are some violations here? Well, violations would be violations of your rights. So any threatening language that is also not allowed. Failing to disclose the debt. The debt collector must disclose the amount of the debt, the name of the original creditor, saying you owe this to the bank or you owe this to the hospital, and that the debtor has the right to dispute the debt. So it's totally fair. You can dispute it, right? Just because someone says you owe money doesn't mean you actually owe it. People are wrong, get things wrong all the time, right? Contacting third parties. A debt collector may not contact the debtor's family members, neighbors, or employer except to locate the debtor. Drilling this home. I know we just saw this, but drilling it home. Where is someone's right is something. Someone's breach of that right is a violation. It's another thing. Contacting the debtor directly if they are represented by an attorney. So you'd probably only hire an attorney if we're talking large chunks of change here. But if the debtor has a legal representative, the collection agency must communicate with the attorney instead of the debtor. Calling at inconvenient times, the debtor may not call a debtor before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. unless the debtor agrees to it. I don't know why you'd agree to that, but that is how that works. And contacting the debtor at their place of employment if the employer objects. Collection agencies must not contact the debtor at work if the employer disapproves. This is also to not disrupt the ordinary course of business. Let's talk about embarrassment, being embarrassed in front of all of your colleagues. Also, employers don't want a bunch of debt collectors coming and bothering their business, right? We're trying to protect business, stimulate the American economy. Let's not disrupt that in any way. All right, some other points here. The applicability here, it applies to collection agencies, now not to the original creditors collecting their own debts. However, generally speaking, we are going to follow the same rules. Just because you are the hospital, originally the creditor trying to collect your own debt, doesn't mean you can still bang on someone's door at 3 a.m. and scream profanity at them. Let's just keep that in mind. But we're talking about these third-party collection agencies, which, generally speaking, I've had them call me because I just didn't know I had debts outstanding. I got a treatment surgery, I moved, and they had no idea where I moved to, and I didn't really, I forgot that had happened. So I, some months later, had a third-party agency call me, be kind of, they are aggressive. A lot of them will be aggressive for sure. And I said, all right, well, tell me, where did this debt come from? And they traced it back. They told me it was the hospital where I had gotten treatment, and it was fair. Now, that one actually ended up being a little bit different. The dollar amount ended up being different than what they said. So always make sure you have your own documentation, you understand what treatment you got, all that good stuff. But here, again, it does apply to those third-party collection agencies who, generally speaking, can be a little more aggressive because this is what they do. They have to be aggressive. Some people are just evading debts out there. Contact with third parties, collection agencies, again, they can only contact third parties to obtain info about the location, but they cannot disclose that the debtor owes a debt. They can't even say that I'm looking for this person because they owe me money. Nope, just say, hey, do you have any idea where John is? They ask why. It's business. It's federal business. Whatever they say, it just can't be that they mention anything about a debt. Terminating communication. Debtors can terminate communication with collection agencies by sending a written notice stating that they refuse to pay the debt or requesting that the agency cease further communication. See how we're kind of building on this. So first, prior slide, we talked about how we can say, stop contacting us, but this is how you do it. You have to send a written notice stating that they refuse to pay the debt or requesting that they cease further communication. And lastly, legal recourse here. Debtors can sue collection agencies for misconduct. So know your rights here, know all of the rights we talked about. If any of these rights are breached, you can sue that collection agency. If the debtor successfully proves a violation, they may be awarded up to $1,000 in damages, plus attorney fees and court costs. And at that point, you're probably shutting them down. They're not coming after you anymore. I think that would be the best outcome.
Hey there! Are you ready to not only pass your CPA exams, but truly understand and enjoy the material while studying? I know it seems impossible, right? Especially to enjoy the material? We'll do it together. Tap into the power of CPA.examprep.ai, where we've got personalized quizzes, multiple choice questions, memorization guides, flashcards, simulations, all tailored to your learning. Our adaptive study planning puts you on the fastest path to success and lifts you back up if you fall behind. Avoid wasting your precious time and money attempting an exam with a low chance of passing, because who wants that? We want to get you through this process as quick as possible. Our exam readiness prediction lets you walk in with confidence, knowing that you're prepared for success on exam day. Thankfully, there's no payment method needed to get started, so why don't you come join us? Visit cpa.examprep.ai and let's achieve your exam success together.